Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hello, friends. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Paul, your host, and today I am at Knox Farm State Park in East Aurora, just on the edge of East Aurora. Beautiful springtime day. I know it's spring because the warblers are back. Tiny little insectivores, birds. And if you know what an insectivore is, it's basically an animal, bird that eats insects. And warblers are tiny little insectivores, so as soon as they come back to New York, you know it's springtime. And this morning, I was actually up doing a birding walk. I won't say hike because, I have a group of 25 people, and I'm walking to do some birding. We're not hiking, we're just walking. We're stopping a lot, checking out the birds. I was up at Forest Lawn Cemetery. I do nature programs up there in the springtime, and this morning we were doing a birding walk, and we saw quite a few birds up there. Had 3 different species of warblers up there, which was kind of awesome. And so that means, spring is finally here. Also some baby great horned owls we spotted. So that was kind of the highlight of my morning. But then afterwards I decided I want to come to Knox Farm and talk a little bit about bluebirds with you. Now, it is a little windy here. I am getting some breezes, so I will apologize for any wind noise. I'll try to edit it out as much as possible, but not always possible to do. So I wanted to talk today about the eastern bluebird, and bluebirds in general, but mostly about the eastern bluebird. The eastern bluebird is actually the state bird of New York State and Missouri, as a matter of fact. So it's not just New York, but Missouri as well. So it's such a beautiful bird. They're small birds, they're not really big, and the male's bright blue on them, bright red breast on them, beautiful birds. But they are insectivores. So, and actually I'm going to change that comment. Insectivores, yes, most people consider them insectivores, but a lot of people also consider them omnivores. If you're not familiar with that term, the term omnivore, basically what omnivore means is they eat both plants and animals. So insects, animals, they're eating those, but they also eat things like berries. They will also eat seeds and fruits sometimes too. So they're eating a variety of food. So when everyone goes to the store and buys mealworms to put out for the bluebirds, they love those because they are primarily an insectivore, but they also eat berries, seeds, other things as well. Oh, we got some birds flying through the woods here. Woodpecker. A couple of blue jays too. But we're not talking about them, we're talking about bluebirds. Now, what is their range? Like I said, I'm talking about the eastern bluebird. Eastern bluebird is found in the eastern United States. That's where they got the name eastern bluebird from. So what do you think lives in the western part of the United States? The western bluebird. Yeah, you also get the mountain bluebird. That's mostly out west as well. So mountain bluebird, eastern bluebird, and you get the western bluebird. So their range is the entire United States, but they also go up into Canada, and they will go into Mexico and parts of South America as well. So they do have quite a large range for the bluebird, but the eastern bluebird, eastern United States and up into eastern Canada as well. Their habitat? Well, mostly you'll see them in open fields, but they do like to be near the woods, and you will see them in the woods as well. So the reason they like to be near the woods is that protection. If you're in a nest box in the open field, yeah, that's great. You have all that hunting of the insects in that open field, but you also have predators. Yeah, you have predators, so you need some sort of cover. Now, the reason that they like the woods is because that's before we started making nest boxes for them. That's where they found their homes. Yeah, cavity nesters. They like to live in cavities. So they would go to the trees, find a hole in a tree, and now their beaks, not strong, not made for pecking holes in trees, so they can't dig out their own cavities, so instead they depend on existing holes in the trees. So maybe a woodpecker deserted a hole that was in a tree. Maybe there was a branch that broke off and it rotted, leaving a hole in the tree. The bluebirds would use that as their cavity, their home. Now, do they use it all the time or just during nesting? It's primarily just for nesting. Once they have babies, then they'll use the nest box, they'll use the cavity. But sometimes they will use it for cover, for protection, getting out of the rain, but mostly it is just during nesting season. So if you have bluebird nest boxes on your property, you're not going to have the bluebirds in them year-round, especially in the winter if you live in the northern climates like I do. So, and by the way, I have 26 nest boxes on my property for bluebirds, bluebird nest boxes. I also have some chickadee nest boxes, but the chickadees will use my nest boxes. Matter of fact, I just checked my nest boxes the other day, and I had some chickadees that were hanging around the one, and there was a nest in there, so I think I have chickadees in one nest box, and I do have bluebirds in the other nest, in another one of my nest boxes. And the tree swallows are back, another insectivore. The tree swallows are back, and they're starting to pair up and choose their nest boxes. But I pair mine up, so usually it leaves some open for the bluebirds. I don't mind the tree swallows being in there as long as they leave some open. I'll talk about pairing up and bluebird trails in a little while. But I checked my nest box. I had bluebirds in the one, and I was going around checking them because I do nest watch, and I wanted to see how many eggs were in there, if there were any. And I opened up the nest box, and there's mom sitting on the nest. So I couldn't even check to see how many eggs were in there. So I did check yesterday, and she was not in there this time. I mean, the first time, she didn't even get off the nest. She's like, yeah, I don't care if you're here. I'm on my eggs. I'm sitting here. I'm not leaving. She was not going to budge. And I wasn't going to force her off. She's doing her thing. I'm doing mine. I left her alone. But I went back yesterday and I checked, and she wasn't on the nest, and there were 4 eggs in there, which was awesome. It was nice to see. But anyhow, eastern bluebird, their habitat, like I said, mostly open field, but they also do like the woods, open woods, not really cramped, dense woods. They like more open woods. And if they are in the field, they do like to have bushes or trees around just so they have a place to dart to in case they're in trouble. Okay, have another bird chasing them or something. When they are nesting, okay, breeding, mating, they are pretty much monogamous. Means that the male and female will essentially mate for life. So they will find each other year after year, and you'll have the same pair mating each year, unless something happens to one or the other, and then got to continue the species, so they will find a new mate. Occasionally, they will they will find another mate during the year, so a male will mate with 2 females, but that's not very common. It's usually the same mate. They do nest more than once during the summer, during the spring. They will make a nest, and I have this happen on my property all the time. They'll lay the eggs, raise their family, and then while dad is taking care of the young, The mom goes off and she lays another brood in another nest box, or the same nest box usually. So you will have 2 or 3 nestings, 2 or 3 broods each year with the bluebirds. I mean, sometimes just one, but quite often I know on my property I get my bluebirds nesting like twice during the summer, during the nesting season. And I usually get 2 pair on my property. They don't like to be right next to each other. So usually I have 1 pair nesting in a box in the front of my property and 1 nesting all the way in the back of my property. So that's how I, get 2, because I have a large enough area. Now here at Knox, they do have quite a few boxes up. Not as many as they used to. I don't think anyone's taking care of them anymore. They used to be monitored. I don't know if they are anymore. I'll have to check and see if they are. But the bluebirds, anyhow, the eastern bluebirds, they go south for the winter. They are migratory because they are insectivores, and it's hard to find insects around here in the winter time in western New York, in the northern climates. So they head south for the winter, and then they will come back. Usually the males come back first. They'll come back in February or March, depending on the weather, depending on the climate. They will come back in February or March. They'll scout things out, make sure there is a good place to nest, make sure that I didn't take down my nest boxes, which I don't. Make sure that I clean them out or they yell at me. No, I'm just kidding. But they just want to make sure they have a place to nest. And then the female will come back later. And then usually around mid-April to mid-May is when they start to breed. They start to mate, and they will lay their eggs. Usually 4 to 5 eggs. I have found in some of my nest boxes. I've been monitoring my bluebird boxes for probably 10 years now, and sometimes I'll just get 2 in a box. Most of the time, on average, I get 4 or 5 in the nest box. So they do have on average 4 to 5 eggs. Now both the male and female do help incubate those eggs. So it's a partnership with them. They will help each other. If one's out gathering food, taking a break, then the other will sit on the eggs, keep them warm, and vice versa. There are times where neither is on the eggs, but a lot of times when I'm checking my nest boxes, there will be one or the other sitting on the eggs. And they usually fly off when I get close to the nest box. They know I'm coming. That's why I don't spend a lot of time there. Listen to my Nest Watch episode, and that explains more about Nest Watch. Fun thing to do, and it also helps science. So, anyhow, 12 to 15 days is the incubation. By both partners, male and female, will incubate 12 to 15 days, and then between 15 to 18 days before the babies fledge. So before they get all their feathers, spread their wings, and head on out. They are altricial. If you're not familiar with that term, baby birds come in one of 2 things, either altricial or precocial. Your waterfowl, ducks, geese, they're usually precocial. Precocial means that they are born pretty much ready to survive right out of the egg. So when they hatch, they are fully feathered, they are insulated from the cold. I mean, they're in the water right away, so they have to be insulated. That's why they have feathers right away. But they can also gather their own food, they can eat on their own, no help needed. That's a precocial bird. Now an altricial bird, they are born naked. So you ever see the pictures of the pink little naked ugly looking thing in the nest? Yeah, that's an altricial bird. Obviously can't fly, obviously need help from their parent to survive. They can't hunt on their own, they can't get their own food. So mom and dad are out gathering the insects, gathering the worms, gathering whatever, food for the altricial bird. So bluebirds are altricial, born naked. So they need a little time to get their feathers, to get their bearings, to be able to survive on their own. So they usually take between 15 and 18 days for all this to happen, for them to get their feathers to a point where they can fly. And that's when they fledge the nest. Fledging, if you're not familiar with that term, fledging is when the baby bird basically spreads their wings and flies away. Yeah, they're usually not totally on their own. I mean, they're self-sufficient, but dad mostly, but it can be mom, depending on whether she's off raising another brood. But he sticks around and teaches them how to hunt, how to survive. He's there for protection a little bit. So, yeah, so he will stay around for a little while. So it's not like, hey, good, you can fly, get out of here, I'm done with you. No, that doesn't always happen. They're self-sufficient, but they still need to learn how to survive out there. They will have 2 to 3 broods a year, like I said. The male will tend to the young, while the female renests if they are having more than one brood, like I already mentioned. Yeah, they are territorial. Yeah, bluebirds are territorial, and that's why I said at my property I usually get 2 nesting pairs. The one year I had 3, which kind of surprised me, but I had 3 nesting pair. The one box is always towards the front of my property, the other box is more towards the back of my property, and I have 12 acres, so that's a lot of room. But I have had where they've nested both of them towards the middle, but never right next to each other. No, they always go a little bit further away. Now, the male, when they are being territorial, the male he defends the outskirts of the territory. So he's checking out the boundaries. He's at the outermost part of the territory, making sure nobody's coming along, no other bluebird, also other birds, and they don't bother him too much, but they make sure they know, hey, this is my nest, you stay away. So they're guarding the territory, the male. The female is the one that guards the nest box. So if you get close to a nest box and you start getting attacked by a bluebird, it's probably the female that's attacking you, because the male, he's guarding the boundary. So they take their turns, they have their jobs, and they take their turns of guarding different areas when they're being this territorial. Now the nest is built by the female. The male, like I said, he checks out to make sure, he comes back early, checks to make sure there's a great place to build a nest, but the female is the one who basically builds it. He will gather materials to help build, but she's the one who builds it. Okay, guys, you guys who are listening to the podcast, have you ever tried to rearrange the furniture, or maybe put a different pillow on the bed, or maybe a different blanket hanging on the back of the couch, or you move something in and the wife, she comes along and moves it right back? It's like, no, they're the interior decorator. Don't even try to mess with the system. That's the same way the bluebirds are. Yeah, the female, she has that nest just how she wants it. Those males, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, at least that's what she's thinking. So, yeah, female builds the nest, but she's more than willing to take his help. Yeah, he can, we got just had a red-bellied woodpecker fly through, pecking at the tree. Yep, went over towards the woods. I'm actually at the edge of the woods trying to stay out of the wind. I'm watching the field, and I have been watching some bluebirds. They've been hanging around this one nest box that's in my view, and so I think they're probably nesting in there, but I'm not going to bother them. It's not my job to monitor the boxes here. I would love it to be. Maybe I'll talk to them about that. But anyhow, lost my train of thought here. They're about building the nest boxes. So the female builds, male gathers the material for it. Now, after the babies have fledged the nest and they're ready to be on their own, they usually go off and find their own territory. The adults, however, they move on. They will widen out their territory, their area, find more food out there. But the next year after migration, remember, insectivores, they head south for the winter where there's more insects. Migration's all about food. So insects disappear in the cold climate, they head south. They will come back to the same nest site most of the time. Okay, so it's like, hey, it worked out here last year, it'll work out next year, so I'm going back to the same place. So they will come back year after year to the same nesting area. The babies, however, they have done studies through bird band. I always put bands on the baby birds that I have come to my nest. I always put bands on the baby birds in my nest, the bluebirds. So I band the babies before they fledge so we can keep track where they are. I have caught the adults in my nets as well when I'm doing bird banding, and so they've been banded as well. But through this type of study, they have found that only 3 to 5% of the young will return to the same territory. So that's pretty interesting how the adults, they will come back to the same territory year after year. The young, they go off and find new territory. Only 3 to 5% come back to the same territory. Bluebirds have been in decline. Their numbers have dropped quite a bit. And the main reason is habitat loss. The forest being cut down, the old trees being cut down, they're losing their cavities to nest in, fields are getting grown over, insects are disappearing, so habitat loss has been the main reason for the decline. How can you help? How have people been helping? Well, basically building habitat, nest boxes. So if you build nest boxes, they will come. Yeah, the bluebird nest boxes, there's plans all over the internet. There's several different types of nest boxes for bluebirds. I have built different kinds. There's the standard rectangular box. The most important thing with these boxes is the size of the hole. Size of the hole in the box so that they can actually get into the box and larger birds cannot. Now you will find that sometimes house sparrows use them. You will find that tree swallows use them, chickadees use them. So there are other species that use that size hole as well. But you want to make sure it's the right size hole or you will get larger birds and then you probably will not get bluebirds in it. So you build these boxes. There's the rectangular type. There's one that looks like it's almost like a V shape. It's small at the bottom, larger at the top. That's the type I have on my property. I've seen these boxes made out of PVC pipe as well. Do they have a preference? Well, many years ago when I worked for Buffalo Audubon, we were working with New York Audubon for a short while, and we started doing programs here at Knox through New York Audubon. They set it up with New York State Parks. And anyhow, we started setting up nest boxes. We started monitoring the nest boxes, and it was a lot of fun to do that. But we did it also for scientific research to see what birds were in there. We were banding them, we were monitoring the boxes, but we also wanted to see preference. When we put the nest boxes out, we put out different varieties. So we put out boxes of the 3 different types that I just talked about, and we also painted them different colors. So some were red, some were white. Others were just kept plain wood. So we had different colors on them, and we made sure that we made different colors in the same type of box. And what we found after, unfortunately, the program only lasted 2 years, so in my opinion, it wasn't enough data, but it was a little bit. So 2 years of monitoring these boxes, we found that the bluebirds had preference to, can you guess? Didn't matter. Didn't matter. They had absolutely no preference whatsoever. And they enjoyed all 3 boxes. Didn't matter on the color. Didn't matter on the style. So I wish we could have done because all the boxes were not occupied all the time, I wish we could have done a more in-depth study for more years, but the funding ran out. New York Audubon moved out of the park. They stopped doing the programs here. Buffalo Audubon stopped getting involved. So anyhow, we never really got the whole thing settled, or enough data, in my opinion, to really come up with a good conclusion. But from the couple of years we did it, no preference. So when you get out there, build your boxes, doesn't matter what style, whichever preference you have, whatever you think looks great or awesome on your property. So that's the best thing to do to help the populations. The numbers have come back up now that more people are getting involved. There are groups out there. The Eastern Bluebird Society, there's other groups that are monitoring, that are taking care of, that are getting information out there, knowledge about the bluebirds and how you can help them. Just like I'm doing now, I'm telling you how you can help the bluebirds. So how do you set up a bluebird trail? Where do you put the boxes? These are questions I always get asked. If you have open field, great. Put them in the open field. That's where my boxes are. I have a trail, a mowed trail that goes around pretty much the perimeter of my 12 acres. And then I also have a trail going up the center of my property. And I put the boxes along those trails. Just makes it easier for me. Do you want to put them spaced apart or close together? Another question I get. I always tell people both, and that confuses the heck out of them. But anyhow, what I mean is you pair them up. So you'll put two boxes, and there's two ways of doing it. You can piggyback them, so you put up one pole, put one on one side of the pole, the other on the other side of the pole. I don't really care for that, because then both boxes, or one of the boxes of the two, is getting wind coming in the entry. Okay, so if it's raining and you have a windy day, it's getting wet inside that box. Usually, the best direction to face the opening is going to be southeast, out of the weather. Okay, so southeast, it gets that sunshine during the day, warming the box up, but it also prevents the wind from getting in there. So if you piggyback, hard to do that. The other way is to set one on a post and then set the next one along your trail on another post about approximately 5 feet away, and I say 5 to 10 feet, somewhere in that range. And then the next box should be about 30 feet from there. And then you can put another one next to that. So you're putting up pairs along your trail. Now, if you only have one box, there's a good chance you won't get bluebirds, unless they come back quick and get in there right away. Otherwise, another species might. So I always recommend, if you're going to make a bluebird box, you might as well make two. Or if you're going to buy one, buy two. Pair them up. That way, it gives you a better chance of getting the bluebirds. Like I said, I got lots of tree swallows on my property. And the tree swallows, they occupy, I'm going to say probably about a third of my boxes. But they never will occupy a box next to another box. So the pair. The reason is they're territorial. They won't let another tree swallow go into the other box. But they don't care if a bluebird goes in there. So it leaves it open for the bluebird. The bluebirds don't bother the tree swallows, and vice versa. Happy scenario. So pair those boxes up. That's the best thing to do. Now, unfortunately, we're just about out of time here, so I'm going to wrap this up. But the last thing I wanted to say is that, well, bluebirds, they've actually been known as a symbol of hope, love, and renewal. And many Native Americans actually included them in their legends. Yeah, so there's several legends from different Native American peoples who that include the bluebird, different bluebirds, whether it's western, eastern, or mountain bluebird. They have been in Native American tales. It's also suggested that dreaming of bluebirds It represents happiness, joy, fulfillment, hope, prosperity, and good luck. So hopefully you dream about bluebirds tonight. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, please rate and review, share it with friends. All the links to how you can support the podcast or how you can share the podcast are in the show notes. Be sure to check them out. You can buy some great nature journals on my website, as well as merchandise, including t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts. All of the links are in the show notes as well, and I will also leave some links to nesting boxes for bluebirds. I'll leave links to plans for them so that you can make your own nest boxes. So I hope you enjoyed learning about it, and of course, as always, get out and explore the nature around you. Have a great day.
Did you know that plastic is made with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? And did you know that only about 15% of all plastic is recycled into new products? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic so that we could stop harming the planet? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic sells products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection from toothbrushes to food storage containers to drinking straws, all plastic free. And it's reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.